Welcome back to Rising to the Occasion, everybody. I'm your host, Josh Mahler, joined by Britton Mahler and Jeremy Russell. And tonight we're going to be talking about the college football playoffs, the most exciting time of the year for college football, unless your team isn't in it or got eliminated early. But it's still fun. If you're a college football fan, this is the most exciting time. And tonight we're gonna start off by talking Ole Miss versus Miami. Two misfits, two teams that shouldn't have made it this far. That's what I think is really cool about this story. Is I feel like really all four teams are somewhat of a Cinderella. Oregon maybe a little bit less. So I guess three out of the four. But I think that's what makes this so fun. And then with this matchup specifically with Miami against Ole Miss, it's Ole Miss who lost their head coach. We'll talk about that. Makes it through with their new head coach as interim head coach in the playoffs. He didn't even want to take the job as head coach through the playoffs, but he saw the list of names that they were going to throw in there, and he was like, "Well, screw it, I'll do it myself." So just a really cool story. But of course, on Thursday night, this is the first matchup of the two playoff games left. We've got Ole Miss versus Miami. Miami, the 10 seed, who barely made it in, literally in the midnight hour, only because they beat Notre Dame. So they make it in over Notre Dame, which I'm not going to complain there, and Notre Dame can keep on crying about that. But I mean, guys, this is going to be a really fun matchup between Miami and Ole Miss.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is an interesting matchup for a lot of reasons. Like you mentioned, the fact that they don't have a head coach. All of a sudden, they bring in a guy last minute and decides to coach these guys. Um, Man, what a tough deal for the Ole Miss guys. Making it that far and your head coach leaves you before the bowl season. But to be able to come back and win the first game, they have no doubt in their minds that they can win it all. The team is stuck together. The team is sharp, and they plan on winning it all. They've looked really good up until that point, but nobody really knew how they would handle Lane Kiffin leaving. And I think they're here to show the world how they'll handle it.
Yeah, Jeremy, I think that that's a huge part of it, but just the fact that these two teams, with everything that surrounds it, these two teams are not the teams you would have expected to make it to the Final Four.
Oh, 100%, dude. I mean, like, who really realistically would have thought number 10 Miami would be sitting where they're currently at, one game away from playing for a championship here. And you look on the other side for Ole Miss, like you said, Brent. I mean, with Lane Kiffin leaving, no one realistically knew what was going to be the next thing for Ole Miss, just because I mean, a lot of people really relied on Lane Kiffin, just how he progressed throughout that entire team. But I mean, Chambliss took the reins and just said, "Who cares? Whoever is head coach. I mean, just let me play football, and we can see what we can do and try and make it to the national championship here." But I mean, Ole Miss has definitely been proving a lot of people wrong just because of obviously that circumstance. But I mean, you also got to look at Miami's perspective. I mean, having a guy like Carson Beck on the helm. I mean, he's no stranger to playing for a championship. I mean, it's obviously a great weapon to have in his back pocket, but I mean, still, like you said, Josh, I mean, who realistically would have thought that number 10 Miami would be playing number 6 Ole Miss here? Because I can tell you for sure right now, I did not have that on my scoring card. I definitely had it going the other way, but who am I to make a guess here? That's why I stick to watching TV instead of trying to make my decisions.
Did anybody predict them winning over Ohio State?
No,
I
I
didn't think
No.
there's a chance.
no. I mean, well, I felt so when Jeremy and I were talking about that game, I was like, on paper, when I was breaking this game down, it's like I'm looking on paper and Miami should win this game, but there's just no way they beat Ohio State. Like on paper, they have the better defensive line, they have the better offensive line, they have a more experienced quarterback. So yeah, I felt like there's everything about Miami just says give me Miami on paper, but
Hmm.
I don't believe that they can beat Ohio State, and here we are, where they ended up handling Ohio State pretty easily. I mean, they led the entire game.
Yeah, the thing about that was, this Ohio State team reminded me very similar to last year's Ohio State team. They dropped the one game to Michigan last year, and the world is falling, the sky's falling for them. The fans are upset, and what do? They continue to do what they do, and they win the national championship. This year felt very similar in the fact that they got over that hump, they beat Michigan, but then they lose a game in this sort of fashion. It just, man, I thought, man, this is a team similar to last year, similar built. They're going to go all the way, and Miami comes in with other plans.
Well, and for Miami too, feeling like they got snubbed for some, from some regard. I feel like they got snubbed from the ACC championship game. Where why is Duke playing in over Miami? That doesn't make any sense. So then Duke wins in the ACC championship game to create all the chaos of putting JMU and Tulane in there. So then now you have two group of fives instead of just one at the auto bid. So yeah, all of that. I mean, so Miami feels like they've been snubbed from their ACC championship game, but in some regard, I mean, like I think that maybe that was a good thing. Maybe that helped them rest up and get ready for the playoffs. I don't know. However, it ended up playing out. It ended up getting them here where they're one of four teams now playing for the national championship, and Miami opened up as a 3.5-point favorite, sitting there right around that 3-point favorite right now. So it's a really close matchup, according to Vegas, sitting at about 51.5 point total, and Miami. Yeah, Miami favored on most sports books whenever I was looking at it. So I just feel like the road to getting to where they are here is just so crazy. And Jeremy, you and I were talking about Miami, and it just feels like the reason why they've gotten this far, and specifically in the playoffs, and even more specifically against Ohio State, was all because of their defense.
100%, dude. I mean, their defense has really been stellar this entire season. I mean, you look at what their defense has been capable of doing just for it's one thing to look at in the regular season, but you look at what it's been in the postseason. I mean, Miami's defense has been absolutely lights out, allowing very little points throughout this entire series just for being able to put everything that they can and try and do whatever they can to stop the run. I mean, you think about it, these last two games, like I look back between Ohio State and A&M, I mean, they've only allowed 17 points on the board here. I mean, that's a really, really good ratio to put up, and you've been able to put up 34 points between your last two against A&M and Ohio State. I mean, just looking at both sides of the ball has been great, but I mean, that defense has been absolutely one thing. Like, it doesn't matter whether it be on the running situation or through the air. I mean, it obviously has the stats to back it up just for not allowing them to have as many points putting up against the team. But I'm just really curious to what they're going to be looking at against Ole Miss because, I mean, you know as much as I do, Josh. I'm probably the same with you, Britt. I mean, with Chambliss and the way he did, especially against, I don't know why I completely just went off on my topic, but especially how he did for last week. Excuse me. I mean, that was definitely something to throw out there. So that Miami defense is definitely going to have to be playing even more lights out than what you've seen them just do for so far for this entire postseason here.
Yeah, Ole Miss is definitely going to be a tougher offense than any other offense that they've gone against in the playoffs. Obviously against Texas A&M, and I would say Ole Miss is even better than Ohio State on offense, and it's proven to be so. You know, you think of where Ole Miss comes from. Going through their first round, really starting off in the beginning of the season, Austin Simmons gets injured early in the season, and they go to their backup quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss, who is an FCS quarterback. Now, one thing that has been, kind of put out there over and over again this year is that Trinidad Chambliss was also an FCS national championship quarterback. So that's something to at least put on his resume. He steps in, and it was like, wow, like this guy possibly should have been the starter the whole season, and then sure enough ends up winning that starting position and taking over, and then getting to the playoffs, of course, with Lane Kiffin leaving, which I want to touch on later. Lane Kiffin leaving and then getting through Tulane with ease. I mean, everyone expected them to beat Tulane, no doubt, but then to whoop up on them, to beat them 41-10 in your first ever home playoff game there in Ole Miss, one of the biggest games in Mississippi college football history. And so, huge there. And then Trinidad Chambliss, and it leads the offense to coming back from a 21-12 deficit at halftime, where I pretty much gave up on Ole Miss and was like, you know what, it's late, I'm going to go to bed. And then, before I go to bed, I checked, before I fell asleep anyways, I checked the score and I'm like, what the heck happened? And I had to look back. So, just a crazy game-winning, turnaround there in the second half to come back. It's been incredible for Ole Miss too.
Yeah, I think you guys said it right. I mean, it's the defense for Miami that really, is the question mark in this game. Honestly, I really feel like this game's going to come down to two turnovers, just like it did in the Ohio State game. That pick
Yeah.
six turned the
Yeah.
entire game around. Um, Man, it's whoever takes care of the ball in this game. I think this is a very good matchup. Two teams that can both do it on offense. They can both do it on defense. They both have solid special teams. What's left? It's turnovers, man. That's what's going to come down to.
Yeah, it's going to be a high-powered Ole Miss offense against a really stout Miami defense. And that's what I think is really fun. When you've looked at all of the matchups so far, it's almost like the committee lined them up in a specific way to where there's certain matchups against the other teams. It's strength against strength in all of these games, and it's really fun to look at that going down through it. And this one is definitely no different. But let's jump into the Lane Kiffin story, just because I think it was relevant to begin with, but then it seems like it keeps on becoming even more and more relevant because more comes out about the story, where the coordinators were originally, we were told that maybe the coordinators weren't going to be able to coach for them, even because if they left, then Lane Kiffin was going to expect them to leave to LSU. But then come to find out, no, Lane let them go back to Ole Miss to finish up their job. So they're doing two jobs at once right now, which is really crazy. So you've got your coordinators coming back, trying to finish this thing out for their team. And they, many of them, I don't know if all of them, but many of them have come out and made statements. Let's see, I know for sure Charlie Weiss, the offensive coordinator. I'm trying to think of who else was in there too. But there were several coordinators that came out and made their commitment to finishing out the season now. But there was a question mark there for a minute whether they would finish out the playoffs, and that's just crazy to me. But Lane Kiffin leaves after your team goes a historic season, 11-1, the greatest season that you've had in Ole Miss history, making it to the college football playoffs, hosting a college football playoff game at Vaught Hemingway, and then you just leave your team, and it's just, I don't know, it's crazy to me. I understand the bigger, more money, bigger resources and all this, but Ole Miss was just a place where he could really do whatever he wanted, and wasn't going to get any flack for it, and he's going to have a lot of leeway too. He's got a pretty loose leash, if there is even a leash at all. So I think it's been crazy with all the drama going around about this. Then of course with any team, but especially with Ole Miss, the transfer portal creeping up on you in the middle of the playoffs, which I think is really dumb. But then again, Pete Golding coming in and taking over as head coach early to help this team go through, and now they're sitting here in the semifinals. It's a really cool storyline for Ole Miss to make it this far, no doubt.
Yeah, I think it's ironic because mainly everything I hear about Lane Kiffin, the situation, it's a lot of hate. I mean, the Ole Miss fans don't like that he left. A lot of people think that they did him dirty. Yada yada. I'm kind of on the opposite side. I stand up for Lane Kiffin. We have to factor in the new college football, right? College football is different than it was 10 years ago. Back then, a guy like Lane Kiffin would stick around, finish out the season, and then move on to another school. But now, like you hit on earlier, you have the transfer portal. You have to remain, continue to keep the guys that are already there that you want. There's so many moving parts that because the NCAA has done such a bang-up job with this whole situation, and transfer portal's happening right in the middle of all the bowl season, Lane Kiffin has no choice but to get his butt over there and start working on next year. I do think it's commendable that he could have easily said, no, if you want to come coach with me, you need to come with me now and help me, but he didn't. And Lane Kiffin's been very active on social media too, very excited for his team. He's cheering for Ole Miss. He still loves the guys and has a good relationship with those guys. So I think he's done everything the right way. Unfortunately, the NCAA and the way that things are now, he didn't have a choice but to go.
Yeah, well, and I get what you're saying. I do blame the NCAA and the scheduling of everything, because if it wasn't for the transfer portal opening up in the middle of the playoffs, then that's part of it. But in the other regard, I don't really blame Kiffin as much for the departure of the team. I guess it's just like taking a job when, like, even exploring jobs, because he was exploring the Florida job too. Exploring jobs when your team is on a historic season. I don't like it. I agree with you. It's a changing landscape and everything, but it's just I felt like Ole Miss had everything for him, and it's like he's making it this far. Are you more about money or more about leaving a legacy behind? And that's where I feel like that's the difference. But the biggest part that I don't blame Kiffin so much about all of this is that he wanted to stay and coach the team throughout the season, or to close out the playoffs. And Ole Miss told him, no, if you take the job, you're out. And I think that's kind of stupid on Ole Miss's part personally. Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
I mean, realistically, like I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Josh, just because like you said it the best about Lane Kiffin. He could literally dang near do about anything that he wanted at Ole Miss here. It doesn't matter what that Lane Kiffin says, they would make it done for Lane Kiffin. And especially with the historic season that Ole Miss was literally doing. Currently now they're sitting at 13-1, obviously. I mean, you said it the best in the postseason or just in the regular season. This is the best season that Ole Miss has had ever. I mean, it still kind of mind boggles me just around this entire situation. And I know some time has passed to where Lane Kiffin obviously isn't at Ole Miss anymore. I mean, I can only imagine like some fans that were really, really devastated, even like probably boosters as well. But at the same time, like Lane Kiffin has to do what's best for him. And Ole Miss obviously gave him that opportunity to where you either have to stay or it's my way or the highway. And Lane Kiffin just chose it was time for the highway to hit, and he left off to a different place. Obviously, we wish him nothing but the best here. But the biggest thing that I still at least do give some props to Lane Kiffin and just being able to still get in contact with those guys and just still cheering them on and everything. But still, just overall, for this entire situation with Lane Kiffin, it still kind of mind boggles me that he had to leave right when everything was going so great for Ole Miss, and it's just kind of hard to wrap my mind around a little bit. But I understand the reasoning why, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I think it's worth asking the question to ourselves too, like what do you think the reason is that Ole Miss says, hey, if you're going to take another job, then go now? Because in my mind, normally it would be, back in the older days, it'd be, well, we don't want you here because we don't want you poaching our players. We don't want you to continue sticking around knowing that you're leaving. But you can do that now. Transfer portal's open.
Yeah,
and let's be real. There's poaching going on everywhere. So why Ole Miss? Why would you not want this guy that's led you to this staying, at least finishing out the season? Like what's the reason for that?
That was kind of their argument, was like, we don't want you sticking around. But like, you're right. It's like it wasn't going to stop him. He's currently in contact with the players to encourage them. He wants them to close it out. So
yeah, now all you're going to do is make him mad, and who knows? What if you don't let him coach and you piss him off, and he says, no, I'm gonna start taking your players. Then it's not going to change. I just don't understand that decision.
Well, and fans need to know too that players commit to coaches more than the team. 90% of the time, you do get the one-offs, and I think most of the one-offs are typically walk-ons. Most of the time, they're walk-ons. If they commit to the team more than the coach, it's because they were a walk-on and they wanted to go to that team. But overall, they're going to follow him over. Let's start off talking about Miami real quick. An incredible season from them. 12-2 currently. They were 6-2 in the ACC. Didn't play the ACC championship game because they lost to SMU in overtime, which, through their roundabout stupid way of tie-breaking it, gives 7-5 Duke the chance to go and play for the ACC championship game. Okay, whatever. Make that make sense. But anyways, they had a great closing to their season. Had 6 straight wins since the SMU loss. Really closed out and went down the stretch, getting hot at the right time. And then, of course, maybe, like I mentioned a moment ago, maybe not playing in the ACC championship game gave them some time to rest and get prepared for the playoffs, because now they're lighting it up and beating Texas A&M and a really defensive battle there at Kyle Field, and then going to the next round, having to play one of the toughest teams in the nation in Ohio State, and really handling business there in a really shocking fashion. But they were averaging right around 35 points per game in the regular season, of course, scoring a little bit less now in the postseason. But then their defense, that's the part that gets me, is that just how stout that defense is, how they shut that Texas A&M offense completely down in the first round. They were able to get the big turnovers, like you mentioned, Britton, against Ohio State, allowing 285 yards per game. It's a really tough defense. That's the biggest story, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right about getting hot at the right time, and also like lost to SMU, the way that they bounce back. They've gone through some trials and tribulations. They've already gone through that, and they've shown up again and again, and continue to fight to get to themselves to the place where they're at now, where one more game and you're playing for the national championship. So a team like that that's been battle tested and maybe not always come out on top, maybe that's better, going through adversity throughout the season, but still making it this far. I could see definitely there being some cons to that, or some pros to that rather, than a team that, who knows, like, Indiana still undefeated, what happens, we'll talk about that later, but what happens when they start to go through a little bit of trouble when you've had those games and you lost, but you bounce back and you fight a team that can gel together and stick together and continue to fight. That can really help you out when you're this deep in the conversation for playing for national championship.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, well, and Jeremy, you and I've talked a little bit about Miami leading up to this point too. Not only being battle tested and everything, but just, I mean, I feel kind of similar about this Miami team than as to how I felt about Ohio State last year coming into the playoffs with Ohio State. The down season, you losing to Oregon, and then at the end of the season, you lose to Michigan and miss the Big Ten championship game because of that loss to Michigan. And then you get into the playoffs, and all of a sudden it's just a totally different team. You're just on fire. Very similar to where Miami is, except that loss coming earlier in the season to get hot leading into it, and then just lighting it up in the defense or in the playoffs.
Oh, 100%, dude. I mean, like we talked about earlier, I mean, you never really expected this out of Miami, but I mean, having guys, just having dogs, honestly, on your team definitely goes to show you how much you can get together, band as brothers, and just put a single game together. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, obviously having a guy like Carson Beck and having his reputation of knowing what it takes to be able to get into the postseason, then that's the first step. Then you get into the first round. Obviously, get that step done, the next step, and then the next step, and want to eventually play for a national championship. I mean, don't get me wrong, Carson Beck, he's thrown for a lot of yards here. I mean, he's currently 296 for 398 with 27 touchdowns and 10 interceptions here. I know that's your one favorite stat, Josh, obviously for TDs and interception ratios. But I mean, even like outside of that, I mean, just for their running game, he had Mark Fletcher. I mean, having 177 carries, I mean, he's been working his tail off just to be able to put points on the board, and currently having 10 touchdowns. But I mean, it just goes to show you how much Miami can really look at people and say, you can say what you want about us, but that doesn't affect us. We're going to keep playing the same ball that we know how to play, and you can see us how we look in the postseason, and you can say what you want. But I mean, you just look at what Miami has been through, and just throughout the entire season, they've been doubted so and so much. And I think honestly, that's a big thing that feeds the fuel into the fire, and they can say all they want. And Josh and Brent, I know you could probably say the exact same thing. I mean, you get those kind of moments to where they can say what they want, but that just keeps putting more fuel into their tank and just keep wanting to shut those haters up and just show them what they've got.
Yeah, you've got everything to prove and nothing to lose. Really, you're playing with house money.
Yeah.
You weren't even supposed to make the playoffs because Notre Dame was ranked above
Yeah.
you, and it was like, all right, well, if they didn't rank us above Notre Dame up to this point, then they're not going to now. And then sure enough, the committee all of a sudden does the right thing in literally the last moment. Let's go to
Yeah.
key players real quick, starting with Miami. Key players. I guess you can pick offensive or defensive players. Who do you see as being key players that can make or break Miami here in this game?
Yeah, it's got to be Carson Beck for me. The experience is everything. Um, we'll talk again. We'll talk later about Indiana, but Kirk Extended will agree 100%. Experience is everything. A guy like Carson Beck has been here, done that before. He knows what it takes. He's played in the big moments. He's played on the biggest stages. He's the keys to the Lamborghini there in Miami.
Yeah, no doubt. Jeremy?
I mean, I got about talking about Mark Fletcher again. I mean, just being able to run the ball as steady as he is, averaging 5.3 yards per rush. But I mean, having a guy like that is a very big key value to your quarterback, to where, if you're going to obviously not throw the ball and give it to a stiff running back. I mean, he's definitely shown a lot of adversity just throughout this entire postseason, just throughout the entire season in general. So give me Mark Fletcher just for being a stout player.
I'm going to go two guys on the defensive side of the ball because they've got a crazy good defensive line. I'm going to go both ends. I'm going to go Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor because both those guys have an opportunity to work together as one to really get big time pressure back there on Trinidad Chambliss. You have got to find a way to get that guy to the ground because Trinidad Chambliss is so elusive and he's so hard to get down. We saw that against Georgia. The reason why they ended up beating Georgia was because Trinidad Chambliss put that offense on his shoulders and carried that team. Bain has 4.5 sacks, 19 solo tackles, an interception, and a forced fumble in the regular season. Mesidor has the team high in 10.5 sacks in the regular season alone, combined for 7.5 sacks in the two playoff games. Those two guys. So I mean, these two guys together can put together a huge outing against Ole Miss and try to put pressure on Trinidad Chambliss and really turn things around because you have to stop him. You have to find ways to shut him down. So that's where I kind of lean towards those defensive ends. You got to get pressure back there on Trinidad Chambliss. That's how you're going to win. You're not going to, I mean, you can win by putting up points on offense, but your defense has to stop Ole Miss's offense. That's what's most important.
Yeah, and I think that's the exact reason that my top player for Ole Miss here plays a factor into that. It would be Lacey. I mean, taking the pressure off your quarterback, because you're 100% right that Miami defense is going to come after you. You need that safe check down, whether it's catching a screen pass or just handing the ball off. You have to find a run game. You have to find some consistency in the short games to take some of that pressure off because Miami's ends can really get after a quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt. I think for Ole Miss, I guess jumping over to Ole Miss, their whole season was pretty much flawless. Like they had the loss against Georgia, and outside of that, they ended up redeeming themselves in that one because they ended up beating them in the playoffs when it really mattered the most. But they have been just electric on offense and being able to do whatever they want. I think a really good example was whenever they played against Oklahoma and a really good Oklahoma defense and just found ways to just rip that defense apart, really. It was just schemes, and it was all schematic, the way that they were able to design just little details into their offense. The way that they would hold back their offense because they know how good Brent Venables is at adjusting, knowing that the in-helmet communication cuts off at 15 seconds. Lane Kiffin would hold his offense back, not line up until at that 15-second mark. Then they would run up because now on the sideline, you can't call into your linebacker and say, hey, look at this. Here's an adjustment. We have to make this adjustment. So it was just really smart things like that really, I should say, Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss, because it is Charlie Weiss's offense, and he's proving that now. But it's just the way that they have schemed up things throughout the season. It's been an electric offense. It's been so fun to watch. Scoring 36 points per game, which was 9th nationally, 488 yards a game, 2nd nationally. And then, it's been a crazy offense. And again, their only loss was where their offense was performing really well, scoring 35 points against a Georgia defense. So for them, I feel like it's going to have to be, you have to stop Miami in order to have any chance. You're going to have to stop them at least once, right? So if you can just stop them once or twice, likelihood is, hey, your offense has the ability to go down there and score nearly every drive. Now, I don't think they will against Miami's defense, but it's going to be really fun to watch. But Jeremy, who's your key player for Ole Miss coming into this matchup?
Looking at my key player, obviously we can sit here and talk about Lacey and Chambliss, but you got to look at one of the guys that he's been throwing to. I got Harrison Wallace, a third out there on whiteout. He's currently sitting at 894 yards. Averaging 15.7 here. He's definitely been a key benefactor for Ole Miss here, and just even looking at the postseason. He's usually that guy that's always going to be in Chambliss's back pocket here, and doesn't matter whether it be short game, long game, medium game, whatever the situation may be. you always know he's going to be looking for him, especially when he gets open in the deep shot. Yeah, you already probably know who he's going to be. So that's definitely going to be one thing that Miami will definitely have to cover. But I mean, Harrison Wallace has just been playing stellar, honestly, and he can definitely keep having a really, really good senior year, especially for Ole Miss, and he will want to go out with a bang here.
Yeah, he seems to be one of really Kewan Lacey and Wallace. They both seem to be the two guys
Yeah.
that when Trinidad Chambliss needs somebody to find open, they're really good at finding themselves an open space for Trinidad Chambliss. But let's
hmm
go to keys to victory for each team, starting off with Miami. Britton, what would your key to victory for Miami be?
It's going to have to start with the offense. I think that that offense is going to have to run the offense at their own pace. They're going to need to control the game, keep the Ole Miss offense off the field, march down the field, take time, chew up clock, and don't be afraid to hand the ball off and just grind the clock. You use Carson Beck when necessary. Let him do his thing. He's experienced, but run it like a Big Ten kind of game where you just hold the clock in your back pocket the entire game and hopefully come away with some points. Keep that Ole Miss offense off the field.
Yeah, no doubt. Jeremy, what do you got for a key to victory for Miami?
Don't let Chambliss get too comfortable. I mean, that Miami defense is definitely going to be putting up a heck of a fight against Ole Miss's offense here. But I mean, the last thing that you want to see Ole Miss do, especially from Miami's perspective, is get comfortable in the pocket, just because you know as much as I do when he's just chilling back in the pocket and has time to scan and feel instead of making those quick throws. It's gonna be a scary good game if Chambliss gets too much time in the pocket. So Miami's defense has to keep playing stellar and play everything that they've gotten the entire length of the game, and just don't let Chambliss get too comfortable in the pocket.
And it's hard to make him uncomfortable. It's hard to get him
Yeah,
out of his zone. But
yeah,
I'll say for Miami, I think forcing turnovers. Britton, you mentioned this earlier. That's going to be the key for Miami. That's how they beat Ohio State. That pick six was really feels like the game changing moment in that game, or really the game changing play for that game. Without that play, I don't know that Miami beats Ohio State. So you're going to have to force turnovers. Chambliss doesn't turn the ball over very often. But the reason why I think Miami has to win the turnover battle and force, I think like forcing two turnovers would be really big, which they did against Ohio State. If you can get a couple turnovers, what you're doing is stopping Ole Miss getting their offense off the field. But like I mentioned a moment ago, Ole Miss has the ability to score at will. So getting them off the field, forcing a turnover to get your guys on the field is really big. I think that's going to be key for Miami. Going over to Ole Miss, Britton, what do you got for Ole Miss? What's a key to victory for Ole Miss?
For Ole Miss, I think they need to. I don't think it's the same exact concept as the Miami there, but I think it comes on the defensive side for Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss needs to do exactly what you just said and take the ball away a few times because your offense is going to put up points. Your offense is going to run. But if you allow Miami to do what they're going to try to do, which is chew clock and take care of the ball and come over with points at the end, that's what Ole Miss needs to do. Get a few turnovers, give that right back to your offense. You want that offense rolling. If your offense is sitting on the sideline for, you know, 6, 7, 8 minutes, just worth of it's a recipe for disaster for Ole Miss. So they need to come away with some turnovers there and keep that offense going. Let that offense have a rhythm all game long. Keep them on the field. Get your 3 and outs. Get them back on the field, and you got a good chance of winning this game.
Yeah, Jeremy, what's your key to victory for Ole Miss?
key to victory for Ole Miss is their running game throughout Miami's defense. I mean, let Lacey show what he's capable of doing, and just don't don't hesitate when you're getting obviously on the ball. Once you have that run, just absolutely show what you're meant of. And don't get me wrong, like you mentioned earlier, Josh, for having some really really big stellar D linemen. I mean, he's going to obviously have to make some big time plays and big time attributions, whether it be on the running game or even just throw a block, obviously, to let Chambliss have some time in the pocket. But I mean, I just want to see Lacey just show what he's capable of doing and just run over the Miami defense.
I'm going to play off of what Britton said, kind of forcing turnovers, but I think on the defensive side of the ball, just stopping the run. Because like you said, Britton, Miami's going to try to slow the pace down a little bit and run up the clock as much as they can. They're going to try to eat that clock up to keep Ole Miss off the field, which is what they should be doing. And so I think that's going to be really key for Ole Miss's defense. Stop the run, and it's going to be really difficult to do that against one of the best offensive lines in the nation. So you've got to find a way to stop the run, because that's what they're going to do to eat up the clock, force them to throw the ball. And when you can force Carson Beck to be the guy to carry the team, he starts to crumble. And so I think if you can force him to be the guy that you got to put the team on your shoulders, that's when he starts to kind of crumble, and he doesn't do well against that pressure. So I think putting pressure on Carson Beck by stopping the run is going to be huge for Ole Miss. Of course, this one being in a dome, you don't have to worry too much about weather or anything like that. So, the passing game should be big for either one of these teams. But, looking at it, it seems like overall, a lot of people are picking Miami. It seems like most of the national media really picking Miami, and it's probably the smart pick. Again, and you look at the on the paper stuff, and it feels like Miami has what it takes to win this game. I was looking over a lot of the sports books have Miami opening up at 3.5 points. They're still sitting there right around that 2.5 to 3 point favorites. I was looking at a lot of different places, kind of lean Miami in a close game, 4 or 5 points, kind of barely covering that spread. And then, I think the key factor to me, which we've talked a lot about, is kind of Ole Miss's offense. Are they able to score enough against this elite defense? And then on the other side, is this defense able to stop Ole Miss's completely electric offense? So I think that's going to be the biggest one. Jeremy, I'll let you start us off. What's your prediction for this game?
This one I've been going back and forth just thinking about this, just because you got two stellar teams here. But at the end of the day, I think Miami's just going to keep showing everyone that you can say what you want about us and you can be number 10, but who cares what they say. I'm honestly going Miami here. I got a score prediction of 31-28. I think it could be a real nail biter here.
I like that because it's a little bit higher scoring, which I think is very likely, even though Miami's got a tough defense. But Britton, what's your take?
Yeah, I've got a hot take here. I'm actually going to go with Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss wins by double digits.
Really?
Yeah, I really
Wow.
do. I think something. I just don't think Miami's seen a team like Ole Miss yet. I've watched Miami fairly close this year. They've got a great team, but again, I think what happens here is what you alluded to earlier. If Ole Miss can really jump on them early, that puts a lot of pressure on Carson Beck. Yeah, I'm going to go with Ole Miss by double digits.
Yeah, I don't think Ole Miss will win by double digits. I feel like it's going to be a close game. I do think that Ole Miss is going to force Miami to score more points. It's going to be more of an offensive battle, and I think it's going to start off real slow. I think you're going to start off where you see both teams not being able to score and leading into an explosive second half. I think this one comes down to it where I'm going to pick Miami, but I'm going to pick Miami like 38-34. I think higher scoring game, so I guess smash that over. I don't know. I just feel like it could either be Miami forces Ole Miss to play some defense and it's a lower scoring game, or vice versa, where Ole Miss forces Miami to have to score a little bit more. And I think that's probably more likely. But nonetheless, it's going to be really fun to watch this one. For Miami, it's going to be their first trip to the national championship since the 2001 to 2002 season, I believe it was. And then for Ole Miss, it's been since 1960s since they've seen the national championship. So going to be really fun. Again, two dark horses to have made it this far. It's going to be Thursday, January 8th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 6:30 Central. It's going to be one that you do not want to miss down in Glendale, Arizona. But that's all we've got for you today. We appreciate everybody so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Check out everything we do at rising2.com. That's risingto.com. You can follow us on social media, help us keep on growing, share it with a friend, all that fun stuff. But anyways, we will catch you on the next one.